one of the other feats that you went for was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, and not just climbing it. I think bear crawling, was it 19,000 feet? My first question is like, where does an idea like that even come from? Like how do you set a goal?
There's a combination of things. One being that I wanted to be able to just go and explore a bunch of different, you know, I wanted to be able to go and explore, and nature and the hike and all that. Like just the idea of it kind of like struck me as a huge challenge. And I had just done a CrossFit competition, and the first workout on that, I decided to go and do this competition like a night or two before it started. And the first workout was we had to do a 1,000-meter row on a rowing machine, and then you had to go and sprint up Stone Mountain, which is 900 feet near outside of Atlanta. And with that, like I've used leather welding sleeves on my arms, and I've used bath towels and duct tape and different things like that to go and come up with a pair of shoes before some amazing people came in and helped me build out like a carbon fiber shoe. But with that, where I first started, it took me an hour and 42 minutes, I think, just to go and do it. And I tore off the skin off the end of my arm. Like it was, really challenging. But then I got to the top, and I remember, I had been to the top of Stone Mountain before, and, looking out and seeing Atlanta and seeing like the view of the city after like having gotten there on my own steam. I previously, where we'd take a tram to the top, and it's, drops you off, take a couple of pictures, and then jump on and ride the tram back down. And after doing it on my own steam, like it was like a completely different experience of taking it in, a completely different view of just, how amazing it was. And I told my friend that night I want to go and do Kilimanjaro, and she was like, "You're insane. You're out of your mind. You almost, killed yourself, tore all the skin off your arms, like doing this one. Like, why would you even think about wanting to do that?" And I told her, I don't necessarily know. Like, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can't. I'm not sure what like, is going to happen, with this, but I want to figure it out, and kind of put the word out of different people that I wanted to go and do this with. And my friend, who was managing my gym at the time, I owned a CrossFit gym around that time that I did that competition. It was shortly after we had just opened. And gym manager introduced me to a friend who introduced me to another friend that we had dinner together, and became a close friend. He literally just played the soundtrack from the movie Inception, the song Time. And he was like, imagine if we can go and do the climb and like make a video to something like this song, and to have that kind of like weight. And I was like, wow, like he gets it. But it was a fight in the process too. Like he moved into my house, and we spent the next close to a year kind of figuring out how we're going to actually make it happen and pull it off.
So when you're on this climb, I mean, were there any times where you thought about turning back?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, so the thing with Mount Kilimanjaro is that it's so long. So the altitude wasn't necessarily like the biggest factor that was causing the issue. It was just how long it was. And it was close to 30 miles, and a 30-mile bear crawl, plus the altitude, plus terrain and different things like that. But I definitely was at like a breaking point. Ironically, on the fourth night of the climb, and Mount Aconcagua, which we took on a couple of years later in South America, the highest peak in the world outside of the Himalaya, Mount Aconcagua was 22,800 feet. Kilimanjaro is, I think, 19,340. That little bit of difference, like we spent 5 nights, I think, above the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro on Aconcagua. That climb took almost 2 weeks to complete. Kilimanjaro, I think, was 10 days up, like 2 days down. But I remember being in my tent, and both the fourth night of both trips, and being so broken, and like, having those thoughts going through my head of like, why am I doing this? Like, what is the point? Kilimanjaro, I didn't feel as though it was something that could be like fatal. I just thought it was really hard. And Aconcagua, it was, something where I thought that like actually could kill me, with, like how part was. But the main thing being, after the most brutal day of the climb, we had to go climb through this ice field called the Penitentes. And the short ones, there's like these ice pillars, and there's thousands of them through this like kind of cavern that comes, like the wind comes through and carves out these ice structures. So the 3-foot ones you kind of have to like climb over, and then there's others that are like 5, 6 feet. Some of them are like 7, 8, 9 feet. and you kind of like wedge yourself in between and like pull around through that. I had to do about, I don't know, it felt like close to 1,000 pull-ups through this ice field, and was just a absolutely brutal day. And nothing I could have done in the preparation, like looking at that, like thinking, okay, like that many, I'm gonna have to do that many pull-ups through that. Like I had some idea of it, but not nearly what it was. But I just had to tough it out and go and do it. But I got to the tent that night and my resting heart rate wouldn't go down. It was like fluctuating between like, it was like sitting like right around 135.
Oh, wow.
And at altitude, I was like, this is crazy. And so, I had like that fear that literally when I closed my eyes to go to sleep that night, that I wouldn't wake up again.
Right.
And, but I did, but I, at that point had to debate as to whether or not I was going to keep going. Do I quit at that point, or, do I, tough it out? And we decided to go and take a, rest day there. And I decided that I wasn't going to like make that decision about quitting until the next morning. The next morning I woke up, I felt strong enough, like, okay, I can keep going, I can do this. And sure enough, it was, I was able to become stronger, I think, as the rest of the climb went on. And there's some advantages to that too. I mean, my arms and legs, I think, it gives me a bit of an advantage with altitude. And there's less like surface area for the blood to go and circulate in. And so I was able to recover, I think, a lot faster, from the heart to extremity. That space was a lot less. So it was actually, I think, my friends, in some ways, it was more challenging for them, I think, than it was. I mean, it was still super challenging for me too, but it became a bit more of an even playing field after that.
God, I'm curious, like just in situations like those, and even others that you've just experienced throughout your life, what do you feel separates people who quit from those who keep going?
I've seen it, in moments, in certain instances where I wouldn't have even expected it, in just different times where you see someone, like, it's as if something like a shift or change happens in someone's like heart and soul, their eyes. I don't, where somebody just, looks like done, dead, defeated, like, and then all of a sudden, like, there's like a shift that in them that like you can see, it's tangible. You can notice it. This is a different kind of adventure, but I was invited to do a bike trek across Greece. It was a foundation fundraiser for the Navy SEAL Foundation and the Glenn Doherty Foundation, one of the SEALs that died with the whole Benghazi scenario. And I just got invited to go along with them. And there were several veterans that were there with us. Two of my buddies that were former like SEAL team instructors. They did hand-to-hand combatives training, and, were two of my closest friends. And it was right after I just met one of them, actually. And I remember both of them in particular, they didn't know how hard that was going to be. We went from southwestern Greece in Sparta, Greece, to northeast Greece, where the Battle of Thermopylae took place. And so we retraced that steps, went 240 miles in 8 days. My buddy, one of them said, like, he wanted me to go with him. He was like, I'll just, it's walking. How hard can walking be? 30 miles a day, carry you in a backpack. And I was like, man, I don't know if you can go and do that. Maybe you can, but like, it just sounds miserable riding a backpack for that long. It was an 8-day trip. So I decided to like figure out a hand crank bike. So I used the bike to go and, pedal with my arms, go and keep up. It was, and I had a motor on the bike too for the hills. Like, there's no way that I could have done it without that. But it was very interesting because I saw like their struggle, but I remember seeing them, being so broken. And then all of a sudden, like a switch that flipped. I've seen this in countless other instances too. I think that like, people have that like switch that goes off, and then all of a sudden, they're committed and they're going to go and do it no matter what. I remember my buddy there, like, I was in a lot of pain, legs all bandaged up after like 4 days of this. And he'd never done anything like that before. And, it was tough and brutal. Again, he didn't expect how hard it was going to go and be, but I remember he was like, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to fail. I'm not going to go back and tell everybody, that what happened. And so he took off and like started running. And I was like, man, it's going to be done. See him like sitting at a bar, a couple, miles down the road. And he wasn't like didn't see him for a long time. And then I ended up at the finish line, for the day where everybody had stopped, and he was just, sitting there squatted down, and like, the look in his eye was like just changed completely. And he ended up, kind of leading the pack, through the rest of the way. But the first friend that I made in the SEAL teams in that community has taught me a ton, so many different ways. But the first friend that I made there was a guy named Richard Makowitz. And he had a quote, that mantra that he lived by. He's since passed to a brain tumor, but I know for sure he lived this with every second of his life, undoubtedly. And the mantra was, not dead, can't quit. And, just as that simple, not dead, can't quit. And sometimes for me, like, I go to that, and kind of revert to that, like, of just, things get really tough, hard to fathom, like, what is left. And just, I try to bring my focus of like, what's right in front of me, what to go and deal with. And that, like, ask myself that question, are you dead yet? No. If I hear that voice in my head, then I'm not. I still can't quit.